Every night, at exactly 11 p.m., he visited his best friend's grave. It was his ritual. But one night, when the gates were locked and he climbed in anyway, he discovered the unthinkable. The grave was empty. His friend's body? Gone. Every night at exactly 11 p.m., after dragging himself home from a grueling shift, David drove to Fairhaven Cemetery. It had been 2 years since the car accident that took John's life, his best friend, his brother, and everything but blood. While most people processed grief in stages, David froze in one: denial. Visiting the grave was his anchor, the only way he felt John's presence. The cemetery workers had long grown used to him. A nod at the gate, a tired wave, and they let him in without question. But tonight was different. The iron gates were chained shut. A handwritten sign read, "Closed for maintenance." For the first time, his routine was broken. Irritation bubbled in his chest. He had promised John he'd come every night, no matter what. Turning his head, he spotted a lone white van in the parking lot. Its windows were tinted, no markings on the side, no driver in sight. Strange for this late hour, but exhaustion dulled his curiosity. Determined, he climbed the fence, ignoring the sting as rust scraped his palms. Inside, the graveyard stretched in familiar rows, bathed in dim moonlight. The crunch of gravel under his shoes seemed louder than usual, every shadow sharp. Still, his path to John's grave was muscle memory. Tonight, though, something felt off, too still, too watchful. As he neared the row where John lay, unease prickled his spine. Something about the earth looked different. The grave came into view, but David stopped cold. The earth wasn't smooth and settled as it always was. Fresh dirt lay scattered around like someone had clawed it from beneath. His breath hitched. He dropped to his knees, running his hands through the soil, loose, damp, disturbed. No, his whisper cracked. The name on the headstone, John Miller, stared back at him, but below it, there was nothing. The grave had been dug open. Boot prints, deep and irregular, surrounded the site. Some led away, weaving through the rows of stones. A shovel lay discarded nearby, its blade still caked with mud. The world around him tilted, his stomach churned. He thought of the van, that unmarked white van just sitting there. His first instinct was to run, call the police, but his body refused. He couldn't leave John like this. He followed the prints, moving carefully, his pulse hammering. Sound drifted from ahead, metal clanging softly, followed by the dull thud of something heavy being moved. He froze, heart caught in his throat. They were still here. Whoever had taken John, they were still in the cemetery. The noises grew clearer. A door sliding shut, hushed voices, the shuffle of heavy weight being carried. David's mind spun. Who steals a body? Why John's? He crept forward, careful not to crunch the gravel too loudly. Through the gaps between headstones he saw movement. 2 shadowed figures lugging a black body bag toward the parking lot. His breath caught. John was inside. The van's back doors gaped open, its interior faintly illuminated by a single hanging bulb. Inside, metal crates and strange tools gleamed. The figures struggled, their whispers harsh and urgent. David's body screamed at him to intervene, to rush forward, to save what little remained of his friend. But fear anchored him. What if they had weapons? What if they weren't just thieves? The van's engine coughed to life. Panic surged, overriding his hesitation. He stumbled forward, shouting, "Hey!" The figures snapped their heads toward him, faces lost in shadow. For one long moment they froze. Then, with frightening speed, they heaved the bag inside, slammed the doors, and bolted for the driver's seat. The van roared, gravel spraying as its tires spun. David ran, lungs burning, chasing it through the rows of graves until the fence loomed ahead. The van barreled through the gate's side exit, disappearing into the night, taillights shrinking to nothing. David collapsed to his knees, gasping, helpless. John was gone. David stood trembling in the empty cemetery, rage warring with disbelief. His best friend's grave had been desecrated, his body stolen before David's eyes. He returned to the disturbed plot, staring at the hole yawning in the earth. His thoughts spiraled. Was this random or targeted? John had no enemies, just an ordinary life cut short. Kneeling, David examined the area again. A scrap of fabric snagged on the shovel handle caught his attention. Black, coarse, like part of a work uniform. His fingers shook as he pocketed it. A faint metallic smell lingered in the dirt, unnatural, like rust mixed with chemicals. Behind him, a crow cawed sharply, breaking the silence. He spun around, half expecting the thieves to return. Nothing. Just the endless rows of headstones watching him in silence. For the first time in 2 years, David felt truly alone, more than when John had died. Because now, even his grave was gone. Headlights flared at the cemetery entrance. Relief surged. Police cars rolled in, lights flashing blue and red, sirens muted. David sprinted toward them, waving frantically. They took him! They stole his body! The officers listened, their faces tight with skepticism, but not dismissal. They followed David back to the grave, flashlights sweeping the disturbed soil. But something was wrong. The shovel was gone. The boot prints vanished as though the earth had settled overnight. Even the scrap of fabric David had pocketed was missing, his pocket empty when he reached for it. He blinked rapidly, panic clawing at his throat. No, it was here. I saw them. I chased the van. His voice cracked, raw with desperation. One of the officers knelt, brushing the dirt with gloved hands. "Looks undisturbed to me," he said quietly. Indeed, the grave appeared neatly filled, grass replaced, no sign of tampering. David's knees buckled. He fell against the headstone, staring at the earth that only moments ago had been gaping open. John's name glared back at him, untouched, as if nothing had ever happened. "Sir," another officer said gently, "maybe you should go home, get some rest." But David's eyes were locked on the grave. He knew what he'd seen. He knew John was gone. And somewhere out there, that van was carrying his best friend into a darkness David couldn't yet imagine. The cemetery lights flickered once, briefly. For just a heartbeat, David thought he saw tire marks on the gravel road. Then they vanished.